So good afternoon to everyone and welcome to this webinar on why are journal articles preferred for the literature review. Today, our host is Professor Dr. Bostian Gomishek. He is a quality management professor in the United Arab Emirates. And I think one of the very interesting things is that exactly he has actually an outstanding profile when it comes to publications. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we are talking about above 350. So it's definitely a topic that Professor Dr. Bostian is very, very knowledgeable, so to say, and exactly will be a privilege to listen to what he will have to share with us. Just some basic housekeeping. We'll be recording this webinar. Any question is more than welcome. You can do so by posting it at the chat. I'm happy, as well as Jack, to read them out for you, as well as you can raise your hands and voice your questions during the webinar. Definitely.
Yeah. Curious. Let us make it as a conversation and just ask a question whenever you want to. So that I guess it's extremely important for us. Yeah. At least for me, that I get feedback and actually can answer.
After the webinar, we will, as usual, stop the recording. So if you have one question that exactly you do not want to share during the recorded part of the webinar, please do so and keep it until the end of it. With this, I'll give the floor to Professor Dr. Bostian and looking forward for what you have to share with us today.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Anna. So welcome everybody to our today's webinar, where we'll be talking a little bit about the importance of journal articles. Why should we actually include them? Why should I say right now, really focus on them, and maybe just in some specific cases take some other sources for your DBAs or your PhDs. But as I said, let us try to explain why do I think that actually the journal articles should be really the foundation of your thesis, or afterwards when you will be starting to write journal papers based on your thesis. Yep. What are the learning outcomes for today? Just I would like to share, first of all, some rankings which are used to kind of describe or present the quality, if I may say so, of scientific journals, and how these numbers, let's say, these rankings are showing how important the journal is where you are publishing, or which one you are using actually for your literature review, or for your research questions, or for your framework, or whatever you are kind of doing in your research. As well as what I would like to talk in the second part of the webinar is how we can link actually the journal articles based on their structure to your thesis. What can be actually used in which parts of your thesis, and how you can actually, in a way, understand and extract the journal papers while you are preparing or writing up your dissertation. So this is kind of the learning outcomes. And I usually start with some introductory questions, and let us try to answer them, maybe even now if you want to, through the chat, or even, as I said before, just grab your mic and ask a question or make a nice comment. The three questions I presented are, and these ones will be kind of leading our today's webinar. Does it matter which journal you take, as long as it's about the topic of your research? That's probably the most important question in a way for today, and generally when you are starting to prepare your proposal, as well as afterwards when you are writing up your thesis. Is there a difference between different types of journal articles? So that's another question which we should go in with 3-4 slides, just in order to help you maybe understanding what types of journal articles you should take, what you should include actually, at what stage of your preparation or writing up your thesis. And the last part will be a little bit to link the structure, let's say, in the areas, chapters or sections of a journal to your thesis. What can you get from what part of a journal article, which is kind of supporting, helping to understand and to build up your thesis? These are actually the three questions which are quite important. I don't know, have you ever thought about them while you were kind of preparing or during your coursework or whatever? I don't know if you have, but I guess they're quite important ones. And I hope the majority of you is kind of familiar with these, let's say, answers to the questions. If not, let us try actually to tackle them now. And I hope at the end of the webinar, we'll be actually all clear on these three questions. But the first, as I said, why a journal article? Why do I prefer a journal article? As a supervisor, as an examiner, I really like to see that the journals which were actually included into the thesis were of high quality. So it's really an important topic because it gives us, as we'll be saying in a few minutes, some support and some, I'm even saying reliability of the quality. So what are the possible review sources? As you know, the majority of you is using journal articles. Then you have some non-referred materials like magazines, reports of different organizations and things like that. Then you have books. Then you have conference proceedings. Then many times we go, especially in business, and use government and corporate reports, as well as definitely another source which is extremely useful are other theses and other dissertations. The recent ones or maybe even older ones depends actually on what you are kind of doing, as well as, you know, we have actually the internet sources. There are so many, you can really find any single thing what you are thinking of using probably Google or something like that. But cautious is asked here. I guess internet sources have to be kind of really considered as or taken with precautions, I would say. So don't take anything what you are getting there, what you think you can actually use, because as I mentioned before, your supervisors as well as execs, especially the examiners, will be probably quite critical when you use something which hasn't been kind of seen as of good quality. So the question comes, which one should I pick? I don't know, as I said, what you are using, what you were learned or used to use for your thesis, but make actually use of good high quality sources. That is extremely important. High quality which can be supported by some criteria. So that's extremely important that you are able actually to show that. So do we have any good arguments for any of them? For the journal articles, for the non-referred materials, for books, conference proceedings, because each of them are definitely useful. But as we said, be careful what you are actually taking, why you are taking all those things. Just you have to think and really select the proper ones. So I'll present now in the next slide what or why I do think the journal articles are really a good source of knowledge. For me, as I said, the best source of knowledge. We have mentioned books. Definitely, you will be using books as well, especially probably for the methodology or maybe for some statistical test or something like that. Yeah, definitely, it's a good thing. Actually, all of you have to read some books on methodology. But for the other things, it's a question. Will we use them? Are they actually updated? Is it not too long to read a book? So once again, I would say, let us go and focus on journal articles. That's for me actually the best source and the most widely used source whenever you do your PhD or a DBA. Why is that so? Why do I believe that these sources are the most reliable or of, let's say, high quality? Because the first thing is, but here I'm talking of a high quality journals, okay? Not of any journal. We'll touch that in a few minutes as well. Not of any journal, of high quality journals. And why I think it's really actually the most important one as your source. The first thing is peer reviewed, and that gives really a good support actually for each of the papers which have been published in a good high quality journal. What does this mean, peer reviewed? You know that, I mean, it's a should I say a pleasant process, which usually starts with the editor, and you can get desk rejected because the editor is not sure that the paper is of a high, let's say, enough quality, or that the paper is not fitting into the journal he's editor of, or some other, sometimes even kind of a little bit political things or cautious stuff and things like that. So every of you will go through this experience and pleasant experience. I've been going through this pleasant experience, that you think you have published something which is, or prepared a manuscript which is really of high quality, but then yeah, an editor comes and says, sorry, as a nice paper, but I don't want to actually deal with it. I will not send it. And that's the next stage, what I'm trying to say, why peer-reviewed journals are actually good source, because they are sent to reviewers. And these reviewers are most of the time subject matter experts in the area of the journal and in the area of your publication or your manuscript or any other manuscript. So that means each of the publications, each of the journal, either papers, has been referred first by the editor and then at least by 2 or sometimes even 3. I mean, it happened to me because the paper was really, how should I say, a challenging one, because it was talking about quality in healthcare. It was sent to 5 different reviewers before it was finally then approved for publication. So this process, this peer review process where different people are actually viewing the paper, give really a lot of, kind of assurance of quality and reliability of the paper. And that's the idea behind it. So the guys who are many times, kind of, should I say, unpleasant, we think of unpleasant, but through that, they are kind of, maintaining good quality of the journals and of the publications in these journals. I mean, I even can recall when I wrote the quality of as a reviewer, the quality of this paper is not aligned, is not actually at the level of the journal. So that's why I'm not supporting the publication. And then the paper was unfortunately rejected. But, sometimes you really get things which should not be even actually, kind of read. The next thing, what has to be really done in a good way is actually the methodology. That is another thing which gives you, as let's say, new researchers or established researchers, kind of an idea of methodology, what kind of methodology is good, what kind of methodology can be used, what are actually the newest developments using different statistical tests and things like that. Another positive thing is that, in good journals, they do request that the things are kind of new, that there is a contribution to knowledge. We have here once again that progress to the body of knowledge. So it has to be something new. You cannot just do a study, I don't know, in another organization or another country or something like that and then publish it, because they will say it's actually nothing new, unless you go really deep and explain why that is actually different. Why is it worth making the research and worth actually then publishing it? Another thing which is really good, and you will really be happy with that whenever you will be writing your own discussion, let's say in your thesis, that you will be actually using the discussion section of all those journals, where it is really clearly explained and discussed in detail, let's say, the phenomena and the results which were dealt with in that paper. So it does not mean that you just kind of, present the results in tables, only in graphs, but you have to explain why, what is new, how is that contributing to new knowledge, how is it different from all other papers and things like that. And that is where you are kind of, while reading these high quality journals, developing your knowledge and your style of writing as well. That is really important. Another thing which is actually nice with good journals is actually that they always have a section, kind of depends, is sometimes in part of the introduction, or is it the research question section or something like that. It depends how the structure is. They really highlight what hasn't been done yet. So that means what will be new within this paper, and that will be kind of then shown in the research question, as well as in the section future research. They usually tell us, based on the results which have been actually presented, what could be the next stage of research. And that is for you another good source, let's say, even when you start thinking of your PhD or your DBA, and while you are preparing your proposal, that you get information based on the future research section. So once again, for me, peer-reviewed, that is actually where we should search for our sources and really rely on the peer-reviewed journal papers. So that's my view. So if you do have any comments or questions, please come in and let us discuss it. If not, do we have any comments? I don't have opened the chat.
No, it's all exactly all fine. I think we can continue.
Okay, cool. Thanks. But as I say, guys, really come with your questions. That makes sense, actually, that we are discussing. Maybe we'll be 5 minutes late, but that's not so important. Just come with your questions. Let us try to clear it all as soon as possible. Okay. So I was mentioning, kind of the quality of a journal. And this quality is often, or in most of the cases, let's say, linked to journal rankings. As you might know, we do have different rankings, and these ones are kind of using different criteria. So I put here, actually, they have to fulfill, each of the journals which is included in any of the databases has to fulfill different criteria. The higher the criteria, usually that will mean the higher, let's say, the, as you will say, index, usually a number in these databases. Sure.
Before we go further, perhaps just let's answer 2 questions that we have that came in. First of all, how would you know that the journal?
Okay, no, it's okay, and I opened the chat.
Yeah,
I just use it while I have just a laptop today. How would you know that a journal article has sound methodology? Please explain. I mean, see, that's the idea of what I tried to say, and I will talk about that even now. That those 3 to 4 highly experienced, actually, researchers are checking your journal, and they check every single actually section of it. And whenever we see that, for example, the methodology was not sound to answer the research question or to tackle, let's say, the numbers or sample, or actually kind of to verify your hypothesis, then we will say, okay, the methodology was not sound or adequate or was not proper. So that is that what I said, that kind of reliability, or kind of, showing that 3 to 4 guys have actually read the paper. They agree that what you have suggested is something new. What methodology, let's say, you have used is the proper one to answer this question, and the results which were kind of, let's say, emerging based on the methods you have used are kind of correct. And then in the discussion, properly discussed. I don't know if I have answered your question, Jane. If not, please just come with another question. Okay. Is it okay? Is it clear? So we kind of rely on the knowledge, expertise of the reviewers, who will say if the methodology in this case or something else is okay. I mean, if I recall, my comments were actually so often linked to the discussion, that the discussion was not proper, something like that. And then the authors do improve that. And as you know, I mean, the review process is that you get comments from the reviewers. They will have to improve that. And then is another round. And sometimes it goes up to 4 rounds of improvements of a paper before it is hopefully finally published, or sometimes kind of rejected. So 3 to 4 guys read the paper a few times, and then when they say everything's okay, we kind of support publishing, will be published. And that is that kind of, I would say, guarantee or warranty that the paper is not bad. But definitely it depends on the ranking of the journal, because as I said, here we have the criteria which have to be fulfilled. And don't forget, I will not, and many of us will kind of not even review for every single journal. If the journal is actually of high quality, we will actually spend those, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 hours to read the paper and write the review. If that's not there, we will actually just not do it. And that's another kind of, maybe a little bit unfair, but that's how it runs. So rankings. We do have different rankings, and I will just present 4 which ones are kind of, I would say, the mostly respected in the management and business, as well as natural sciences and mathematics and stuff like that. So I don't want to say most important ones, but as I say, the 2 on this page are the ones I prefer. Okay, I'll go with this. The journal citation reports, that is the impact factor, the proper impact factor. I mean, you have so many impact factors out there from each, I don't know, different journals or countries are using it. That's the impact factors, which is actually supported by Clarivate, and before it was just Web of Science, and it was called Thomson Reuters factor and stuff like that. So that's one which is extremely important, and it is, I'll show that actually later. They use kind of the impact factor in order to show the importance, should I say, of the journal. The next one is Scopus. The things are kind of similar. I'll talk about that a little bit later. How do they actually define actually this number, which tells us what is the impact or quality of the journal. And then we have another 2. One is actually ABDC journal list, that is actually used mostly in Australia, as well as the next one, which is coming from the UK, and it is called ABC, Academic Journal Quality Guide. So these 4, I would say, are the lists which will give you a reliable picture of the quality of the journal. If we go with that, I mean, we have different views on that as well, but I don't want to start this discussion right now. Some of us will sometimes say that actually, it's okay, but other papers or other journals or whatsoever are important as well. I do agree, but if you want to be kind of on a safe side, just go and use the journals and the journal papers which are listed in these 4, let's say, rankings. I'll not go, I mean, here, this, as I said, I know just for you, for the information, the Scopus has developed then actually 3 different indices which can be used. If you want to go a little bit deeper into that, you can actually read about that on their homepage. I mentioned the 4, okay, which are for me the most important ones, but there are many, many out there. There are many, many, many databases which are kind of using different criteria. If you are in healthcare, you might go with something else, but you will see that actually even healthcare journals have extremely high rankings in, let's say, Clarivate, as well as actually in Scopus. So whenever a journal is really a good one, tries to get actually into these databases, because based on that, they will be definitely taken into consideration by many, many different authors. So if I just go and show you how you can see if a journal is part of a ranking and what is, let's say, the impact factor or site score kind of, or they have different names, let's say these numbers, if they are actually of importance or highly ranked even in these rankings. Usually we go, actually, I don't know, I just took here the Journal of Cleaner Production, as you see, and then you go usually into the part where it says abstracting and indexing, and then you will see in which databases they are kind of included, and you will see the good journals are included quite in many databases. And after a while, you will even understand which databases are actually kind of good databases. Citation index, let's say Scopus, that are the 2 I have mentioned. Could be then actually the Australian one, as I said, UK one. It depends in which, let's say, area of research you are kind of doing your research. So abstracting and indexing is actually kind of the first part of it. But most of the journals, as like this one, do already have on their, let's say, homepage, those numbers presented. And as you see here, it says impact factor 9.3. And then we have, and that is impact factor is written. That's actually kind of the impact factor, what we are kind of using and linking to Clarivate. And the site score is linked to the Scopus ranking. That is actually the first part where you will see how, should I say, high they are in their rankings. Because after a while, after you have done that for 20 or 30 journals, you will actually then definitely see and link kind of the number with the journal. And based on that, you will be seeing what you are kind of doing or not doing. Another thing which is actually or can be followed is if the journal ranking is kind of improving across the years. You have here, for example, the same thing for the journal I presented before. 18, 19, you see actually that kind of the quality is in increase, let's say. Another important thing as well, what you can actually check is that you see how high, should I say, or how they are actually highly assessed, let's say, or what is the number in different areas. For example, if you are in engineering and environmental sciences, you will see that Journal of Cleaner Production is ranked number 6 out of 54. Or for green and sustainable science and technology is ranked number 3 out of 44 journals. So this gives you kind of a little bit indication what journal are you taking actually, and how, should I say, in a way, good the papers are. I don't want to go now into detail how we do calculate that, but it is, I mean, I prepared now 2 slides for that. It is kind of how many times, let's say, in average, a journal was mentioned in other good journals. And for the impact factor, it is, I mean, I can read it. The impact factor measures the average number of citations. Citations means how many times it was mentioned in other journals received in a particular year by papers published in the journal during the preceding 2 years. So if we have an impact factor, I have it here for, I guess, 2020. Yeah, for 2020, they check actually the years 18, 19, how often actually their papers were mentioned there, cited there, and based on that, that will be kind of calculated. And the site score, that's another one. It's a similar thing, but it goes across 4 years, range of 4 years, but similar. There are some slight differences, but generally, I usually say, no, I mean, it's good that you know what does it mean, definitely, but the number tells you actually how highly, let's say, scored are these journals. Here, am I too fast, guys, or is it okay?
I think you're definitely in the rhythm, Bastian.
Okay. But as I said, questions. Don't wait for the end. Here I just put together a slide which explains once again different citation metrics. You can read that actually, and if you want to understand that. And here, for example, this is another journal we published with, or the DBA was published in one of my DBAs was published in these journals. Here you have actually many of them have kind of citation metrics. It's written here, and then you have impact factor, the height, then you have the 5-year impact factor, then the, as I said, Scopus site score, and whether they are in the first or second or third, let's say, quartile, and then the SNP, and kind of just in order to give you a little bit a broader picture of the quality of the journal. Then some of them are presenting this part as well. I mean, for us, let's say, who are publishing, that is kind of a nice thing because it says how long will it take that you get the first reply. Because sometimes, you know, in some really good journals, you wait for half a year to get the first reply, even on your, let's say, submitted paper. After half a year, it comes, and sometimes they say, I'm sorry, it's not actually interesting for our journal. Good luck, kind of, you know, and you have lost half a year. Sometimes it goes really fast. But what is for you important, once again, kind of for me, an indication of the quality is this one. When you have the acceptance rate, that means that just 13% of the papers which were submitted to the journal have been finally published after a few rounds of improvements. And you have even actually way lower rates. And whenever you see that, that means that the journal wants to show it and so wants to say, okay, see, that is our rate. The weaker, should I say weaker, or sometimes I will use the word even bad journals, they don't show something like that because they take whatever they get. They even send actually out kind of invitations, publish. And yeah, the new, let's say, issue will be out in 2 weeks or something like that. So no way that they would really kind of go through a good peer review process. So that's another thing which gives you a little bit an indication of the quality of the journal.
I just short also interrupt you there because we exactly had, because I feel that this part is in particular important. Exactly this question of the acceptance rate and which links actually to where we started with the peer review process. Okay, and I think this is very important. We have a webinar on it, which is the predatory journals and exactly how to avoid them. And it's important for both sides, for the moment when we are just putting our thesis, our proposal together, to make sure that exactly we use up to the standard and high quality articles, but also when we want to publish. Yeah, also from that perspective, always look for this information, because exactly, you can always replay that webinar. This is, as Boston said, these are bad quality. There is a reason why we call it predatory journals, and exactly to relate, also to link to the question that was asked here, like there is no peer review, there is no guarantee that what's standing on that article is actually of good quality, that the methodology is adequate, that there is a problem, that, all of this then falls apart. And sorry, because I think this is an important point to mention at this stage.
That is why I wanted kind of to stress these rankings. I mean, we can discuss about the rankings, okay? That's another question. But still, for me, it gives some indication that the papers have been checked and that something has been done, okay, with them in order to guarantee adequate quality. So as I said, there are always systems which are not working perfectly fine, but in generally, this is a good indication. That's why I wanted to present this. And now I'm just bringing, actually, as we said, for the impact factor, here we have journal impact factor. As you see, I guess that was from the last year. The highest impact factor was almost 300, and then it goes actually down quite fast. And we usually say everything what is below 10 is really good. And as you see here, the majority of them is anyway linked to the medicine. And then you have probably some nature somewhere and stuff like that, which are kind of high in science. These are actually really highly ranked journals with 40 or 41 or something like that. But for example, if I go into my area, which is quality management, I guess right now the highest impact factor is about 2.8 or something like that. So I can theoretically not even reach to a higher one unless we link then, let's say, quality management to something else, and we can then publish in other journals. And here we have the ABCD list. That is actually the Australian one. When you see the rankings, A star is the highest, then comes A, B, and C are here actually kind of 4 levels, and that's it. And then here I'm coming or showing you for the Scopus, where you can see here kind of clearly what is the, let's say, journal, and then what are the the number, let's say, the indication, and even you have here the quartiles, actually quartiles indicating that these are actually, that means the journals which are in the first quartile. And then I mentioned the ABS, that means the UK one. Here they have actually kind of 4 levels of quality. Here you see grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and grade 4. And clearly you see that actually in the lowest grade, they have more journals, and the once again, should I say, highest quality of the ranking is kind of showing or including for, let's say, this area, just one journal. So once again, it gives an indication you can theoretically use. And with this slide, as I said before, we move forward. Actually, what I wanted to say here is actually all of you who are actually doing your DBAs or PhDs, all of you, you can do it. You can actually publish based on your research, definitely in good journals as well. Here I just put a list for a little bit of motivation for you, what we have published out of, I would say my supervisions. We have published actually quite in good journals based on the DBAs and PhDs. So whenever you are doing something good, you will be able to publish in a good journal as well. And reading as many as possible of, let's say, ranked or higher ranked journals will help you actually in understanding how to write the thesis, as well as how to write the future papers of yours. So don't forget, you can make it, you can do it, you will do it, I'm sure. Just keep going. Keep going. Don't give up, even if you get actually task rejected the first time, the second time, third time, it will work. Don't forget, our research is always a good research, so we can publish it. Okay. So the next part of the Am I late? Yeah, I'll be a little bit late. I hope you will stick with us. I'll try to go fast, and finish by 4. By 4? No, by 3 in Europe. Okay, so just I want to present a little bit actually different types of articles. You know that probably, that's why I won't be actually sticking too long with this part. But many of you are probably not aware of review journal papers. What is a review journal paper? I'll bring it actually in the next slide. Let us talk about that. And the original, these are the ones you are mostly reading, actually using and relying on. It's good, it's perfect. I totally agree with you. We should do it. We have to do it. And then we have short reports and case studies and sometimes papers on methodology and methods. And some of them we are really kind of focused only on the conceptual or theoretical frameworks. But let us start with the reviews. And that is for me the starting point actually of your DBA or PhD, or whenever you really are searching for a good overview, because usually the review articles are kind of including at least 100, I would say at least 100 papers, state-of-the-art papers, and based on that, good researchers who are mostly invited by the editors who write a paper on that area. So if you are actually dealing, it doesn't matter what is your area, just try to find 1, 2, 3 good review articles on your area, because that will give you really a good overview across what's going in there. So start with that. I really actually recommend that to all my students. Start with review articles if you are able to find them. Some areas they don't have them, but in majority they do. So try to find that. There are different methodologies how to do that. In most of the cases, you will read in management, especially, and economics, let's say literature review ones. In some other areas like medicine, you will meet actually many times systematic review or meta-analysis, but it doesn't matter. Once again, I'm just trying to say, really start with a good review papers are always actually kind of really well written in ranked journals. Okay, once again, I'm always talking about the ranked journals because, as we said, this process, peer review process, as well as ranking, gives us actually kind of a good, as we said, reliable view on the quality of the paper. Original papers or original article, research article, it depends on the journal. They have different actually names. Are the articles we are using most of the time. As you know, as I said, I will not go into that right now. I'll talk a little bit later about it, how they are structured. They are mostly quantitative and qualitative. And anyway, you know, majority of that. So this is actually our basis. And then we have short reports or short communications, brief communications, other names. These are usually quite short, actually, papers where the researchers are just reporting on their data, nothing else. They even don't go too deep into explanation how they did it, the methodologies many times not clearly stated and stuff like that, because they don't want to tell too much before they prepare a full, let's say, manuscript of their original paper. But for some areas where the things are changing fast, let's say IT and things like that, it's a good source actually of knowledge as well. Then case studies. Okay, I'll not go into detail, but we do have actually case studies. And in many cases, it depends once again what you are doing, actually what's your area. The case studies might be of interest for you as well, especially because they will explain quite clearly the methodology, how they selected actually the sample, how they have selected, let's say, an organization or a person or something like that. It will help you. So it depends what you are doing. And then we have another type, let's say, of journal articles. These are journal articles on methodologies or some really kind of clear methods, maybe not too much to be used in management, let's say, But definitely, if you are actually, I don't know, kind of coming from the chemistry or physics or even medicine, then these journals might be actually of interest for you as well, because you might choose, let's say, or search for first of all, probably search and then actually choose a method you would like to use. And these journals will kind of, which are focusing on methodologies and methods, will really give you kind of a good justification why you have actually picked this method. Because you have to, yes, you have to justify your methodology in your thesis. And then we have the conceptual or theoretical, let's say, manuscripts or papers. Here, the focus is on really just on something new, on a conceptual basis, okay? A concept or a framework which will be presented and explained. Why do we think that that is kind of something new? Why do we think that this should be studied? Why do we think that that is actually a good contribution which will lead to some new, exciting, let's say, important results? We have published quite many actually frameworks as well. So whenever you will be really building something new of interest, you can kind of start thinking, actually, what did I write here? Yeah, start thinking how you will sell, should I say, or how will you publish your thinking actually around your PhD or DBA. So, and that could be a nice kind of, I usually say, trilogy. First, you publish actually your conceptual framework, then you publish actually your 2 parts of results or something like that. And you can do that actually, quite easily in case you have thought enough in order to do it. And that is linked once again to the previous slide where we said you can do it and you have to do it. So important thing as well, in case you will be building something new, a new framework, and be able to justify it clearly enough with enough good journals, let's say your research questions and maybe even your hypothesis, for example, or propositions, you will be able to, kind of write or present a good conceptual journal paper. Okay, any questions so far?
No, we can proceed.
Okay, and then the last part is kind of just a little bit that you know how to link different sections which are requested by each of the journals, how you can kind of use them for your PhD, DBA, whatever you are kind of doing in different phases. So that's another thing which gives me actually, as I said before, a good justification why I'm using ranked journal papers, because most of them have to have the structure as you see right now. I mean, with slight differences, but theoretically, everything has to be there. Abstract has to be there. Introduction has to be there. A good literature review has to be there, where you are showing actually your novelty in a way. I mean, what you are planning to do, where you are showing actually the research gaps. Based on the research gaps, you will be building then actually your research questions. You have to answer the research questions. For that, you will be using a sound, as we said before, methodology. And then you will be presenting analysis and results. After you have done that, you have to discuss the results. Without a good discussion, you are just actually no go to be able to publish in a good journal, because it is a requirement to show how your results are contributing to new knowledge. Has to be there. And majority of them will be happy if you can show some practical value as well. And that will be written actually in the part of implications for managers or implications for policymakers or something like that. And that is good for, as well, because it really gives actually kind of clear directions for, let's say, managers, how they can use your results actually in order to improve their operations. Limitations, another thing which is extremely important, that we do admit what is the limitation of our research. Because whenever we do our research, we will never have everything available. Doesn't matter, is it now actually a big sample or is it actually 25 different organizations? We'll go maybe just with 2 or 3 or 5, or is it, things like that. There's always limitations from different perspectives. And usually we are mentioning here anyway, the methodology limitations. And the next one, which is really, really useful for you, as I mentioned before, is actually future research. So here the researchers are explaining what could be done now based on the new results, based on the new knowledge which has been presented in the paper. How can you actually use this knowledge and do some additional research? In which direction could it go, or what they are kind of planning to be done, but they were actually not able to because the focus was actually small, or the financing was not there, or whatsoever it is. So these are extremely important things which are presented in these good ranked journals, as well as the references, which might be many times anyway your starting point. After you have read 1 or 2 papers, you will be clearly seeing and following the journals which are presented there, or the researchers which published actually the papers which were included into the manuscript or into the paper you have just finished reading. And based on that, you will even see what papers are they using, what journals are they actually including into these good ones. Because usually, even it has happened even to me, that reviewers have said, why are you using this journal? I mean, that's a low quality. I don't want to see it here. So it goes even so far that we always do read actually the references and trying to see whether actually the latest journals, the latest papers and the latest knowledge actually was included or not into the, once again, introduction, methodology, and discussion. So that's what I was kind of trying to say, and I have another 2 slides or 3. Let's just see what I haven't said yet. So for me, it's really important that you, how should I say, check, read in detail every of the sections. Because at one point while you are actually doing your research and writing up your thesis, you will need each of them. Maybe in the beginning, you can start with abstract, introduction, literature review, and future research, let's say, and limitations. And based on that, you can actually kind of say, okay, wow, that's there, that's missing, that could be done. And you can actually put the things together and build upon that a good proposal. But when you will be start idea of your research, let's say, the first phase of the proposal, but when you have to explain how you will solve it, how you will do your research, then you have to come back to the methodology and things like that. So, and you make, once again, everything has to be read and everything has to be actually understood in order to be able actually then to put together a good research. So I ask here a question: is any of the sections more important than the other one? For me, actually not. I really believe that you can benefit, or we can benefit from each of the sections, because all of them will be useful and all of them might trigger actually some good ideas. Maybe I don't want to go now because I see it's almost done. The time is actually over, but maybe those 2 or 3 slides will help you actually in order to be able to understand actually, or to use these guidelines, how to read a paper. Because in the title abstract, you will, as we said, understand what's going on. In the abstract, in the introduction, especially introduction, you will get the context. Then, as we said, the knowledge gaps, the research gaps will be probably given in the introduction, the literature review. Based on that, you will have to you will have to propose what you are doing. That's going to be actually the objectives. And this will be linked to the research questions, to the framework, and to the hypothesis. And then we have the methodology. And don't forget, methodology is extremely important part of each of the research. Extremely important, because if you are not using, I'll use once again, sound methodology, up-to-date methodology, you will not be able actually to come through, because the examiners will say, I mean, I hope that supervisors first will say, no, go, let us think, read a little bit more, think, come with a new actually proposal how we will do that. And exactly in these papers, you have actually so many really nicely explained way how they have done it. So the methodology is really nicely explained, and use that as much as you can. The next stage is then where you will be checking for your analytical, let's say, procedures, how you will deal with the data. Is it qualitative or quantitative? Doesn't matter, but it's definitely nicely presented in the methodology as well as the data analysis. And then we come to the results, which have to be, as we said, in the next section, which is discussion, clearly discussed and explained in detail and shown, supported by citations. And now we are coming back to the citations, okay? Citations, that means the quality of the journals are mostly based on the citations. That means how many times was a journal, papers in that journal cited in other journals. And that is kind of the influence, how an article, how often has an article influenced another research. That's kind of the idea behind it. And then we're coming to the discussions and conclusions, as we said, which will be definitely, yeah, for me, maybe even the most important part when I read a thesis. And then I mentioned the implications, I mentioned the limitations, the future research. So yeah, I guess I can kind of finish here. Yeah, okay, just the last sentence where I was trying to say that the structure will differ a little bit, depending on the nature of the papers as well as the requirements of the journals, but generally you will have this structure, and yeah, it will be extremely helpful for you. But once again, the idea, the idea of today's webinar was kind of that you should really stick actually and use good, highly ranked journals for the majority of your work. I don't want to say everything. It's perfectly fine that you get actually some ideas or whatsoever from somewhere else as well. Might be extremely wonderful actually and helpful, but still you will have to. That's why I'm saying you will have to come back to the journal papers as well. You will have to, because without that, actually a thesis will not be able to be submitted and definitely not completed. Okay. Anna, over to you.
I think I take it over from here, and before we enter, like some discussion, question and answers, that will be already off the record, so to say. Let me please just also introduce. Would you mind to scroll to the next slides? Exactly, because Professor Dr. Boston is also one host. He's actually hosting two clubs within the Doctorate Hub environment. One of them is exactly within the research write-up, where most or a good number of the things that we have been discussing today definitely can be worked around. The next one is also the Viva preparation. Those two clubs are exactly with Professor Dr. Boston as a host. Also related to the topic, today's topic, we have exactly the doctoral thesis research proposal development club, where already we start working all of these questions, like where are good quality sources, what can we take from good articles. Next, please. And if you want to exactly to start working a bit more, again, a very important part when you are coming to write up your thesis, which is exactly to critically think about your own data and how to compare this to the existing body of literature. For that, we have one of our advanced courses on critical analysis and drawing on the literature. As you know, or someone you already know, like our advanced courses come in 3 formats, so you can feel free self-study through the full content. Everything is open, so everything you can be exploring, and then depending on exactly on your specific case and needs, we are happy also to provide you with a fully tutored option to take that course. Next. Okay, and I think that this is exactly the part that I will stop this recording, and any question that you want to ask will be more than welcome.